worried that you might be the cool kid? You wear the latest fashions on top of all the trends. Or have you ever worried you were too much in the mainstream? Always so generic, more normal than your friends. Well, we've devised a test to put to rest your fears. There's no need to panic if you lend us your ears. Tonight you can't sleep easy after all that you've heard. Cause if you like the show, then you're probably a nerd. Oh, Canon, it's Canon, it's all. Tyler, Phil, and Boris. Oh, Canon, it's Canon, it's all in Canon.
It's Monday, and you know what that means. It's time for a new episode of the It's Canon podcast, the podcast where we talk about all things geek, the podcast where we talk about all things pop culture, the podcast where we talk about anything and everything because it is all in canon, just like the title of the show. We're your hosts, I'm Boris, and as always, I am joined by Phil.
Hey, everybody. No, ho, ho, hey, Hawkeye, hey.
And Tyler.
Hey-o, hey-o.
Yep. So today we're going to be chatting a couple things. We're going to be catching up on the lives of the past week. We are then going to be talking about what the hell is happening over at Activision. And we're going to tie it into a few conversations that we had last week. And then we're going to be chatting about Hawkeye, kind of getting first impressions, what we thought and whatnot. It has been released for about 5-6 days now. So be prepared for all the spoilers. But the Hawkeye chat will happen at the very end. So if you still haven't watched it, you can pause the episode and come back to it when you have watched it.
Yeah, you got to pause it, then go fire up your Disney Plus, watch it, then come back and unpause the podcast.
Yes. So guys, Phil, how's it going? What's new?
Oh, well, as stated, I watched Hawkeye, despite the fact that I started watching it and went, this is too early. Gosh darn it. No, Christmas, no. And I stopped and then I forced myself to watch it. But beyond that, everybody's been going crazy in my orbit about the new Beatles documentary. It's only like 9 hours long. It's just a minuscule amount of eyeball time. Well, I've tried watching this thing 2 or 3 times now. I'm about an hour and a bit, or maybe 2 hours in. And all I've learned from this so far is how much I liked the Beatles before I saw this movie and how much I don't like any of them now.
Right.
So,
why do you say that?
That's, well, they're just arguing, right? It's a creative process. And I get that eventually they're going to come out of it with an album that we know, Abbey Road or whatever it is. I get the place in history. I get the tension in the band and everything. But it's so up close and personal. It's a documentary. It's like cameras are rolling and capturing all the side glances and the disagreement and the anger, the simmering.
Right.
And it's uncomfortable for me. I don't like confrontation.
Right.
And this is all about people avoiding confrontation. So I'm like, ugh, do I do that? Ugh, like it's causing a lot of introspective things. Like, and then Yoko's there. And nobody's talking about it. And it's just weird, like Paul doesn't have his girlfriend there. And George is being shat on nonstop. Like, it's just weird, man. And Ringo is like the peace giver at this point. He's just like, hey, we should all just get along and play the drums. It's just weird, man. Blowing my mind.
Right.
So I don't know if I have the stomach to finish this. Like, it's rough, man. It is rough. I'm going to have to get through it because I can't stop running into people saying that it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. And there's got to be redemption in it. I get it. I get framing it this way. I get trying to get watchers or viewers upset at this point so that you can redeem their viewing pleasures later. Or provide the punchline, right? It just goes, and the Beatles broke up.
Right. Exactly.
Weird, man.
Right. All right. Well, that's understandable. I get that. It happens. But yeah, that's unfortunate that you're not getting the enjoyment that I know a lot of other people are getting out of this. Again, so if I do sound a little different, it is because I'm using a new mic. I'm still getting used to this new mic. It is super powerful, a little too powerful. There's not really gain on this mic, but hopefully I sound good, and we'll take it from there.
Your voice sounds buttery.
Buttery.
So that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Just had butter.
Boris, you've been in a lot of loud spaces, and you've had to use your voice, you've heard sports games and stuff, and you can tell there's a little bit of gravel in your voice. What happens to a lot of people as they get older? And on the old mic, at least on our, I don't know if it comes out to the listeners, but especially on a episode where you can tell that you're tired, or whatever, you get a little bit of the rattle.
Yeah.
So that slight rattle, and here it's just no, you can hear the actual timbre that's behind it instead of just picking up that mid-range rattle.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's for sure something that I have noticed on this mic. Also, my throat has just been taking an ass kicking with so many podcasts and whatnot. But the past couple weeks I've been able to kind of chill, which has been great. It's been a lot of fun. But so anything else going on, Phil?
The regular video games, just beating the crap out of Halo Infinite. I'm not playing that much just because I'm waiting for the campaign. Horizon 5, I've decimated, but continue to do my weeklies. And, I did splurge on Guardians of the Galaxy on the Xbox just because I'm in an achievement race with people. They don't know it, but it's everything to me. And, it's kind of fun doing it over again, Tyler, because now I see story elements because I almost finished it on the PS5. And I'm knitting together stuff that I missed the first time. And I'm like, oh, okay, this makes way more sense now. Okay, This is how we got into this because that person is that person. I recognize that one. Stuff like that. So it's fun. It's got my eyeballs occupied. It does stutter a bit on the Xbox S, which I believe the Black Friday summarations came out and said that was the highest selling console.
Yes.
Makes sense.
Black Friday was the
totally
Xbox
makes sense.
Series S.
It's available.
People can get it.
It's cheap.
Yeah.
And it's available. You can actually buy it.
It's available.
Because it's available.
Very integral part of this.
Yes.
Yeah, because we're we're over a year in now, and PS5s you still can't get one.
I know, it's crazy.
I had someone who was selling theirs on the local buy and sell for $1,000 still, and I'm like, are you serious?
That's crazy.
It's nuts.
That's just crazy. How? Whatever. But you know what? People are going to keep buying it at that price point. The bots are still going to be doing their thing, unfortunately. And it's just what's made this so much worse is the fact that, in-person shopping has pretty much been changed because of the pandemic. So, here we are trying to make do with what we have.
When we're looking at all these shortages that are, those aren't ending anytime.
You know what? Again, I'm going to say this again. Every time we talk about this, it comes up. And I'm just going to say it again. This stuff that we talk about on this show, it's all for entertainment. This is the least of our concerns when it comes to the supply chain and the supply chain shortages that we're seeing. We laugh at Sony, we laugh at Microsoft, we laugh at Nintendo for changing their plans, for trying to find semiconductors, but there are other much more important things where semiconductors can go. Ventilation machines, medical devices and whatnot. Those companies are also scrambling. Here in this little corner, our niche little corner, where we kind of, I like to say, our geek therapy, we kind of chat about this stuff. This issue is huge. We talked about it, I want to say, at some point, in February, March with Tyler, and when we got really in depth about just how bad the supply chain was back then, and now it's so much worse.
Yeah.
Well, heck, just look at Canada. Here we are in the, what I would consider a first world country. And the news tonight is just highways are closed indefinitely on both ends of the country. Supply chain, stuff isn't able to leave ports.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Products can't get in. food chains are threatened. Like booze is threatened.
I don't
It's
know.
nuts.
Let's talk about some real life stuff going on, right? In terms of supply chain, we've been getting some incredibly insane weather here in Canada. Both coasts, the far east coast and the far west coast, have been pretty much decimated by rain. In BC, there have been just an insane amount of flooding, so much so that the border highways are essentially flooded. Nothing can get in or out. The ports are backed up. People can't even get to work. So much so that my brother is in the process of moving out there. He got someone from Toronto to move out there as well, and that's working with him. And he was just basically saying that, like, he's put in a Walmart order for the past several weeks, and keeps getting canceled and canceled and canceled. So he said, F it. He went to the store, and it's not as bad as what you would think, but there are some basics that just aren't available.
It's stress.
It's yeah, exactly.
Like everything's solvable, but it's the degrees and what you accept, and it's stress. And a lot of these people, it's even worse. I can't imagine the poor farmers and everybody else. But it's a serious thing to acknowledge it.
Yeah, exactly. We can only go so far by not talking about stuff like that, right? Like, let's be honest here. This stuff is actually happening right now. It's going to change how we consume things. It's going to change what we do in terms of entertainment and what's available for entertainment for us. It's going to change the strategy of things we talk about on this show, because you cannot tell me that Nintendo, PlayStation, or Nintendo, Sony, and Microsoft aren't thinking about how to better distribute their consoles to the consumers.
Well, I think it ushers in the whole digital frontier a lot quicker.
I think it ushers in cloud gaming a lot quicker.
I think the cloud gaming becomes a focus on companies like, Google has already been doing it, but Xbox are obviously zoning in on it and getting into digital distribution via that route.
I'm gonna push back on that,
Okay.
just because I hear where you're coming from, and I think that comes from, frankly, like, living in Ontario.
Yeah,
but it's worth remembering that, like, I'm on fiber here, but literally, if you go up my street, I think it's the fiber ends 100 feet from my door, and then, like, you are on satellite internet.
Ugh.
Like, we're at the end of the line. And it's worth remembering how many people in Canada and the States, like, you're getting satellite internet. And, like,
No doubt.
I grew up with that.
Yep, exactly.
And my parents still have it, and it's not great.
Yeah.
Nope.
Like, if you get a storm, suddenly you're without. And the other side being, I get where you're coming from, of, like, it seems like it would make sense, but you have this one thing of a lot of people don't have access to it. And
exactly.
We also have aging infrastructure, as we've seen out of the States, especially. So every time there's a storm, more and more of this stuff's going to go down, which is going to hurt them.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the other side being, that just changes where the processing power needs to happen. Like, there's still a superconductor shortage. They need to get servers that can handle this, and you still need the processing capacity.
Well, it's interesting, though, because Xbox, from what we can see, have accelerated their cloud gaming.
Yep.
Right? Like, now they're telling people openly, you know what? This supply shortage of Xbox One X's, or Series X, ain't a big deal. Take your existing Xbox, get a membership that has cloud gaming, and play on one of our Series X's over the cloud. Just have the internet, right? Like, you can play it in the browser on the console.
Yeah, but
it's weird, because that was never there until a few months ago.
But that goes back to what Tyler was just talking about, that the infrastructure isn't there for everyone. We've talked about this when we talk about cloud gaming in general, right? Like, even people outside of, like, I have friends who live outside of Waterloo who don't have proper internet. They're begging and they're waiting for Starlink, and Starlink was supposed to be set up by the end of 2021. Then they said Q1 2022. Now they're looking at Q4 2022 at the earliest. They're not going to get it anytime soon.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't know if we want to go into that thing, but it's also worth noting that, like, that's such a North American thing, right? And I think part of the reason that it is Microsoft is the one that is doing really well, and because Microsoft was able to go, we're just opening North America.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like they just got to, what was it? It was Japan, Australia, Brazil, and Mexico.
Yeah.
Since October this year.
Exactly.
And we know what Microsoft's penetration is like in Japan. So, like, that's not killing their requirements.
Yep. Exactly.
We know Brazil has, like, rampant income inequality and rampant problems with who gets access to the internet and when.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I don't know. It's bad. I mean, to the larger issue, like, these shortages aren't going away, and I think y'all are right that we're going to see a lot of changes. I mean, I honestly think it's going to end up, if this continues to 2023, 2024, like, it's starting to look like shortages are going to, I think you're going to see a lot of indie games do really well, or a lot of, like we were talking about, of the rise of, instead of the AAA game, the triple B game of like, it's good. Not going to cost you as much, and it's not going to be as intensive on your system. But, like, we talked about the new Rogue Squadron a while back, and that's a great example of, like, a lot of people had fun, and it was $40.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And okay, and this is a perfect segue into the first news item. So let's just do it. We can catch up on our personalized a little later, but now that we're talking about this, I kind of like where we're going with this. That's, there's so much more happening in terms of the labor and the workforce, and our conversation last week kind of got me thinking about this a little more, because we were talking about, like, how, certain companies are now unionizing, things that you would never even imagine would ever be unionized or starting to unionize. Tyler, you were talking about RPG companies, and things like that, right? Like, there's a disruption in the workforce and the labor force right now, and it's happening in so many industries. One of the industries where we see it the most, it's because we kind of follow it the most, is in tech. 5 years ago, Facebook was the darling of tech companies. Everybody wanted to work at Facebook. Everybody loved Facebook. Everybody thought Facebook was this great company. Like, I'm speaking generally speaking in terms of, like, the reputation they had for tech employees. But now, we've seen this change. We see how shit these companies are. We see the information that they're hiding in terms of, their bottom line, their ultimate goal, their whatnot. And people are starting to talk out about this. We can talk about the Activision of the world. That's one of the things I really wanted to talk about. Over the past, 6 months, they've essentially been sued twice by major government organizations. Agencies, yeah, that's it. Agencies. Ultimately over harassment, sexual harassment, and whatnot.
The news keeps on getting worse on their front.
Oh, yeah.
Because now Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo all basically made statements last week saying, we don't know how much of a partner we want to be with Activision given all this right now. We're reevaluating our relationship, everybody.
Yep.
Like, that's ugly.
Yep. When the CEO, Bobby Kotick, is being told to resign by major partners, and we're not talking about partners like sports teams. We're talking about distribution partners where you make your money, partners where you need to have in order to make anything, to sell anything. Those three
PC
big players,
market.
Nintendo, Sony, and Microsoft, are telling you, bro, take a step back and resign, please.
And same thing with Steam. I'm sure that if they get pulled into this, they're going to start making some recommendations as far as the actions, but it's basically Bobby knew about this stuff going on in his organization and didn't report it to the board.
Yep.
That's where the heat is.
Participated in it.
Yes.
Which is what
Or
something
participated, which, that's an alleged. But yeah, it's ugly. It's not good.
Yep. And they're constantly trying to say, no worries. The Workplace Responsibility Committee is going to make sure everything is good. Reality is nothing. Like, come on. Like, this is a much bigger issue.
Have an independent check.
That's exactly it. The issue at the end of the day right now is that you're essentially telling yourself to clean up from within with the people who caused and spread this issue and made this issue what it is. So who's going to be held responsible at the end of the day? What changes are going to be implemented, and what's going to be told to the public and the partners about changes that are being made, implemented, and results found?
I mean, honestly, between the allegations from the Californian government alleging that they have destroyed legal documents, which is like, that's a huge problem. And all the way to like the attitude of like, they had to rename a character in Overwatch because it was named after someone who was removed from the company for allegations of sexual assault. And like, it's toxic from top to bottom. And I would bet like 1 in 3 chance Activision Blizzard gets killed by this. Like, I mean, like, they have thousands of employees are trying to unionize. They're pouring money into anti-union efforts in the middle of all this, which is like just being detached from reality. And I don't know if either of you or any of the listeners have listened in on the most recent shareholders meeting, but it was just detached from reality.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Unfortunately.
and just, like I can't Google her name fast enough. They had an executive that got promoted into a vice presidential role or some high up role, and she lasted 3 months and basically quit and said that she was marginalized.
Yeah.
In that role. Like, how insane is that? You basically, double over from the gut punch of your company's treating people like total crap.
Yes.
And just a garbage culture and encouraging all kinds of disgusting behavior on top of all the issues that we've known about, that they exploit their employees on their work hours and deadlines and crunch and all the stuff that we always talk about anyway. So we've got all this happening, and then they go, okay, we know what we got to do. We got to put a woman in a prominent position to save face and to really show we're making a change. And to do this, I get the intent and the deflection, and you have to couple that with actually wanting to do something too, like fix the problem. And she gets there and she says, the problem's not being fixed.
Yeah.
I can see it. This is disgusting.
Yeah.
Like, my God. It just looks exactly like Boris was saying. They just keep on doubling over and making crap garbage promises that are detached from any type of reality in just an effort to make people just stop looking at them for a while. Meanwhile, they can't even make good with gamers because it's confusing as a gamer. Should you support them? Should you not? Whatever. But they released Diablo 2 and it don't work.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the other side where I think we're starting to see come home to roost is overtired, disgruntled employees do bad work.
Yeah.
Crazy thought. Crazy concept, eh, guys?
Like, who would have thought that, like, working your employees to the bone? I mean, it's always bananas how much people, like, have this idea in their head of, like, no, you'll just work harder and that'll just solve it. And that, like, every study shows that, once you go past, I think it's like 6 hours a day is like the upper limit, and everything past that is diminishing returns.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like,
we used to have a saying, excuse me. We used to have a saying in my industry because we had to pull a lot of late nights.
Mm-hmm.
I know Boris, I don't know your past work history, Tyler, but I know Boris will relate to this. because, you get the bonus of, okay, I worked late. Tomorrow I'm not coming in till late or whatever, or I'm half-assing the day because I know we're going to have to work late. But I remember I worked with an old Welsh gentleman, and he just looked at me, and he looked at his watch, and he looked back at me, and he goes, no good work gets done after 2 a.m.
Yep.
No, he's just
Exactly.
like, we're done. Like, I don't care how much crap we're in tomorrow. We're stopping now because we're going to make more mistakes than we're going to make successes.
Well,
Yep.
let's think about this from a pure project management point of view, right? Let's just say past 2 a.m., we're going to make more mistakes. You're going to be working slower. Communication isn't going to be there. So ultimately, you're taking a couple steps back. Then, because you work late, you're going to either half-ass it the next day, come in late, or not come in at all. So then you're losing more time. You're doubling the time that you've done no work or bad work by that point. Right? So it's just a lot easier. But here's the thing, guys. This is where corporate America kind of takes over, is we must have it done yesterday, right? Like, no, like it's out of the project manager's hand, product owner's hands, typically speaking, to say, look, if we leave at, let's say, 8 p.m. and have people come back at 8 a.m., well rested, spend time with family, downtime, they're going to work better. People don't see it that way. A lot of higher ups don't see it this way. All I can think of is Cyberpunk 2077 and the amount of reports that came out that this was the issue.
Yeah. Yep. From top of, I mean, what boggles my mind is, like, way back in my undergraduate degree, I did business and political science, and we've known since the 80s. So, to one degree, I'm like, I understand back in the 80s, like, older executives then. But when it's like all of the data supports this, and there's never been a reputable source that goes against it, and every time it's tried in practice, like, it just works. And it's this bizarre thing that I've been struggling with recently, is how much we've, like, ejected any sort. I speak very broadly of, like, society has just kind of ejected any sense of, like, anything matters other than what you internally believe.
Yeah.
Because, like, you look at every business that does this, it's like, oh shit, right. You pay people more and, like, productivity tends to go up. Like,
well, let's take a look. I know we're jumping back and forth, and we're gonna get to Activision again, but we're just speaking in general. The labor force, unhappiness, the labor force. What's a good word to use? The labor force, like, the crumbling of it. Like, I don't even know how to say it at this point.
Deterioration.
Yeah, at this point, that's pretty much where it's at. But, like, let's take a look at fast food companies, right?
Yeah.
Okay. At its most basic level. You pay people, they will work for you.
Yep. So, I mean, on fast food, this is one of my favorite things, and I think this speaks to how detached people are. This one person was lipping off about how you cannot possibly raise the minimum wage for McDonald's in Ontario above $15 an hour. And McDonald's doesn't get tipped in Canada. I don't think they do anywhere, but I don't know who our viewers are, and I just want to make sure they know, like, they're not getting tips. So it's $15 flat. And he was like, you can't do it. And, like, started to run down math. And his entire thing, like, rested on the assumption that you had 12 employees who were capable of serving less than one meal every 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's like, you've never worked anything like hospitality.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like, at a bar, that's a slow pace.
Yep.
Because it's not, and it's with a staff of 12. Like, what do you think they're doing?
Yep.
And it's this like.
I'll tell you.
Yeah.
The most efficient place you'll ever work is McDonald's. Man, oh man, I still have PTSD dreams about just a 1/10 of a pound hamburger patties, grilling 2 clamshells worth, got the buns and the caramelizer behind you, You know, you're pumping out, and then the food now goes in a bin.
Yep. Well,
And
it was
it bins for like an hour or whatever in these moisture drawers that they have, and then they bin it on top of that.
Yep.
So I'm like, you're at any point in time, you're sitting on a mountain of food. You can feed an army.
Yeah.
Like
at a moment's notice.
yeah. And then now look at the stupid ice cream machine. How much money it costs to
Well, that's
buy and even just do anything. But they're automating the workplace. They're talking
Yep.
about robots to make the
we got those got to be divided up into two issues, because the
Yeah,
ice
I
cream
know.
thing is actually like a whole.
That's a whole
topic.
rabbit hole.
We
I
talked
know.
about that already once.
Yeah, I'm like, what
and
the
we-
hell's wrong?
And we're
But
seeing
that's my point
change.
is, though-
And we're starting to see change there, but I don't want to jump into a new topic. So
Yeah.
Tyler, keep
no,
going.
no, sorry.
No, yeah, I want to. Yeah, I was like, that's actually a tech issue on the ice cream one. That's a weird separate
That's a
one.
right to repair. I know.
I hate the whole thing. So the McDonald's one is like a great example, because the reason it's like that was because when they first designed those processes, they were drawing on like what at the time was cutting edge organizational and process theory. And
Mhm.
we've kind of all just pretended that's not like a discipline. Like, it's not a discipline to be able to sit down and be like, here is how you build a process to do things. And that's the reason McDonald's works so well, and why you could like are able to frankly train almost anyone to do it, is because they broke it down.
Yeah.
And they've made it like so efficient, and they've carved off every bit of thing. And that's because that's what it was based on, was don't make your employees work too hard. Minimize the amount of effort they have to do to maximize the return. And we've just ejected that across whole swaths of society.
Yep.
And I
Pretty
think the
much.
creative industries have, and it's bringing us back to Activision Blizzard. I think the creative industries have long hidden behind this fig leaf of arguing that the creative process cannot be processized, when it's like, that's factually untrue.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Look at any comic artist who's able to hit a deadline, and they're like, no, yeah, you just make it a process.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, whether and there's lots of different ways to do it, and I'm not saying I know the most efficient one, but that's in the middle of what I'm doing for my own business right now. Is like rebuilding the process of like, right, how do I write and just put out words consistently?
Yeah, exactly.
And you have to figure it out for you, right? Like that's
Yeah.
the thing. But every time I talk with my boss, it's about revealing a process, right? Like 'cause I've figured out a process and how I do things, and I've got spots in the day where guess what? I got it pretty easy. If this stays quiet, maybe I get to watch TV for half an hour. Maybe I get to read a book for a little bit. Maybe I need to, do whatever. And he doesn't need to know.
Yep.
And I don't need to tell him. It goes back to the lower decks last year.
Yeah, but that's exactly it. Like, that's kind of how I work my day. Like, people have asked, how do I have time to do a lot of stuff? The reality is that, like, what I do takes up a lot of time throughout the day, but there are chunks of the day where I literally have nothing to do, and rather than sit on my ass and, with a thumb up my ass, I'm just going to be productive with other stuff, At the end of the day, I'm getting everything done, and having the time to kind of do this extra stuff is keeping me sane, keeping me happy, keeping me wanting to continue to do what I do for you already, right? So it kind of goes back to what we're talking about. It's like, this how to keep employees and the workforce and the labor force happy. Because at the end of the
engaged and
day,
happy, right?
ultimately,
But-
that's what it comes down to.
And
Well,
this
and
is
even-
where I'll loop it back to Activision, though.
Yeah.
It's like, let's say what we're all talking about is acknowledged by a corporation where they go, hey, guess what? These three guys just figured out how to save 25% of time.
Yeah.
Actually, they burned a quarter of their time. Up it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Give them more.
you only get punished for success.
Yeah.
You only get punished by that system. Exactly. That's the thing. That's why you can never tell anybody
Well,
that you found that efficiency. Like, that's how dysfunctional it becomes at an organizational level.
couple
The
things.
other side being,
Go ahead, Tyler. Sorry.
the other side being, just to bring it back to Activision as well, is so much of that is creative work, and this refusal to try to processize creativity, and this refusal to like understand that there are minimum path flows. More work hours isn't necessarily going to get you there sometimes, which is a regular problem with gaming companies and law alike. Is just, we're going to throw work hours at it, despite the fact that it's like, that's not, you're hitting scales of addition, but you end up with this fetishization of the creative process that really defends these harassers and abusers, because they're able to have this like smoke and mirrors of, but I am the creative that you can't get rid of, because they, they're able to create this brand that they're irreplaceable. And I mean, I really like a lot of people, but there's 7 billion people on this planet. I guarantee no matter who the person is, someone else on the planet can do their job.
Yep.
Like,
we're all replaceable.
Yeah. And that doesn't mean like that. I don't think that devalues you as a person. I think that's just like that's how commerce works. That's how us having to do.
That's how you become a
works.
better person, though, is realizing that spot, realizing that vulnerability, right? Like when I got sick a few years ago, guess what? They hired a contractor to do my job. And I was like, they'll never get it done without me. And then I was like, oh, crap, they didn't care.
Yeah.
I have to rethink that attitude. And I'm like, I'm a better person for it. Okay, I'm replaceable. All right.
Yeah.
So let's make myself not replaceable by being a good person at work.
That's exactly.
But Boris, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I was essentially going to basically say that, like, to these points, this is one of the reasons why I'm having a difficult time staying in the current position that I'm at right now. And that's essentially because it's meeting targets. Last year, just to put stuff into perspective, I made 145% of my target.
Ugh.
Nice, congrats.
Yeah, but this year you're going to have to make 165%.
Yep.
You know what my new targets are? What that
Yeah.
145% was.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it keeps increasing and increasing and increasing regardless. And the second you don't meet it, that's when you're on the chopping block.
I know, because I used to work at IBM, and believe me, we were under sales quota. I'd go in, they go, we'd like you to sell 5,000 this month.
Yep.
Okay. You work your butt off as a part-time employee. You sell whatever, 5,000. They go, great. Next month, 10.
What? And again, that's bad managers. And I mean, I know people. A former friend of mine was a venture capitalist, and he said like one of the things he would do whenever he buys a new company is every month he just fires the bottom 10% of employees. And I'm like, that is an insane thing to do.
Yeah.
Like, because you don't know, like, is that a bad month? You don't know, like, is Boris not making sales this month because he's actually like, he is single-handedly holding the infrastructure together.
Yep.
And he's just like, yeah.
But this is the issue, right? Like, I feel like and I talk about this when I talk about sports, because this is an issue that I'm seeing in sports, and that's analytics and statistics backing up every decision that's made. People just don't know how to use their gut anymore. People don't know how to make proper decisions based on their experiences, their gut, what they're seeing with their eyes, the tangibles, or the untangibles, but they're just using analytics, stats, and numbers to make very hefty decisions that, you might be correct.
Your key word.
You might be correct, but
here's your key word. It's a trend line.
Yeah.
It's based off of a trend line. They want a chart.
I mean, so all of this, to me, being like a stats nerd, it sounds like, I don't think they're using stats. I think they're misusing stats, right?
Oh, yeah.
And that's what my thing is,
that's a whole other point right there, Tyler.
That's a whole other point.
There's things that I like to call bad metrics. When I was at Black Bear, one of the things that a lot of people try to make me do is get metrics out of employees. So, for example, our technical writers, how many topics they created, how many words they got out on a whatever, how many sections they finished and stuff like that. But okay, that's giving you part of the story, but why do you want to use those numbers to make those types of decisions? So things like that I always called bad metrics, and I didn't care what management ever told me. I always said I will never create bad metrics reports for the powers that be.
That's at best an incomplete metric, right?
Yes.
Because it's saying like, what is their speed? And you're like, freaking, he had the hardest section.
Yeah. And what's the quality? And what's the quality of someone who's like blowing through shit?
Yeah. Well, and then, I mean, I see the same thing when I have to do marketing work of how much people are obsessed with vanity metrics.
Yes.
And I've always said, like, I would rather have 1,000 people who are willing to spend $10 on me a month than 10,000 people willing to spend $1 on me a month.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Because those 1,000 people are a lot more committed already. Like, I can tell that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
The other people, you're transient, right? Like, they're just...
Well, yeah, when they're only willing to spend $1, you're like, okay, like, I gotta work harder for that buck. And that doesn't mean, like, don't try to grow your shit, but it's people who are like, well, I have, like 43 million Twitter's followers. And you're like, all right, but run that through an algorithm to figure out how many are bots. And it's like 80%. And like, oh, so this is useless.
Yep. That's why
I get so many likes. And I'm like, but how many sales do you get off of that? Yeah. It's all vanity.
That's why I love marketing companies and advertisers who, for example, on podcasts and whatnot, for some reason, they give a shit about number of followers you have on the various social media platforms.
Oh, so they're competent. They are capable of doing their job.
Yeah. But like at the same time, we could have 600 actual users.
Sure.
And podcast B could have, 13,000 bot users.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are ways to weed it out, but you're not getting through the first corridor. You're not getting through that first test, if you present those base numbers.
Sure. I mean, yeah. I mean, halfway to get decent marketing, you're also going to make that call. Like, we're off in the weeds a little bit. Different than that call of, like, at some point, it's too small and not worth it for you. But I mean, I've been moving over to, like, the ad buying side recently. And the number of people who cannot provide you any information, it's like, well, then why the fuck would I buy from you? Like,
exactly.
It's like,
I know.
Yeah.
Well, it's not that they can't, it's they don't want to.
Well, I mean, if you tell me you can't, I have two options, and it's either you're lying to me or you're incompetent. I don't love either.
Yeah, exactly. At that point, it's like it's a no.
At that point, you're cutting and running.
Yeah. At that point, you're the CEO of Ubisoft being asked the shareholder meeting. Did you not care about the sexual assault at your company, or were you unaware for some reason? And his response was neither. Actually, it's like, no, those are your only two options.
Yeah.
But is it safe to say that more news, whether it be Activision or Facebook or Microsoft or whomever, these whistleblowers are coming out and actually talking about stuff because of the general labor unrest, or is there just something else going on in the tech industry that we just haven't hit on just yet?
Well, I think it's larger unrest, and it's the I mean, frankly, we're seeing what happens after every pandemic.
Yeah.
After the Black Plague, after the Spanish flu, you get these waves of unionization. You have a shortage of workers, which means that the power and the differential negotiating power is shifted. And, this is just what happens. And I think it's combined because we're seeing it across not just tech, right? Like, we're seeing it in John Deere. We're seeing it in the coal mining industries. Like, when you have, I think it's West Virginia has the coal mining industry, trying to unionize in part to, like, the coal miners are unionizing in part to, like, go green. Like, they're going to unionize and try to force the company to, in part, like, help them all transition to green jobs because they're not.
Yeah, it's
as
not
much as, like, we all treat them that way. Like, these people aren't idiots.
Yeah, agreed.
They're. Yeah, I think we're seeing more unrest. And we're seeing more people who are pissed off at rising corruption, rising issues.
As well, like, I just think, especially with the Facebook stuff and all that, and seeing the level of understanding that people are taking on about the degree of impact Facebook can have on society. If we look at the electoral process, people started figuring out, oh, my actions in this company have repercussions. The Cambridge Analytics stuff and all that. They got a bunch of millennial people, like younger people who were good with numbers,
Yeah.
and whatnot to do a lot of terrible things. And then those people saw it after, and to their credit, they're like, get effed. We want out of this. Right. And then you put in the pandemic now, and you just see these companies. And I think that's where a lot of the whistleblowing comes out of, is that inequity of morality that's going on, not only in the work environment. My goodness, I encourage people to stand up if they're being pressured like that at work, but if the job you're doing is evil, like, or you start having second guesses about it at night, like, my goodness, like when you could sit there and go, oh yeah, we had a memo, we realized kids were offing themselves because we were doing this, and we made the decision, number one, to not acknowledge it, number two, to turn that up to 11. Like,
Yeah. I mean,
I don't know how people could sleep at night, considering you can't even leave your house anymore. You know what I mean? Like, in that whole lockdown.
It also boggles my mind that, like, the American election affected them a lot more than a genocide in Myanmar did. Like, that's fucked up. Like, that is just like, I think we as a species might be in trouble.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
That's a whole other can of worms.
I just took low-hanging fruit on that one, but yes, you are correct.
Yeah.
I mean, I think what we're all kind of saying is, if I may kind of pull the bows and stuff together, is this Activision Blizzard whole situation is really, it's a solid crystallization of a lot of other issues we're seeing in society right now, and a lot of trends that are kind of coming to a head. And if you were, let's say, writing a fiction book to comment on it, like, you couldn't create a better example than Activision Blizzard.
Yeah.
For evil corporation.
Yep, that's pretty much where we're at. Oh man, what an absolute shit show things are. But we're gonna be following.
Ladies and gentlemen, we've tried to avoid the Activision scandal, in the sense that we thought we had an interview for it lined up and whatnot, and we've not talked about it up till now.
Well,
so
here's
the Activision episode.
I have talked with a few people who are part of the unionization effort, right. And they are doing their best to go with the union, and given their current situation and the union strategy, that is why they are not willing to talk this at this time. And I can't fault them for being like, this is part of our strategy, and I'm like, rock on.
Exactly.
Yeah, they don't need a headline coming out of a podcast to dissuade their efforts, but
precisely,
I'm just acknowledging that we've never really given it any air.
And the reason why, like, it's because, like, it's talking about just like headline stories. Any podcast can do that. I like going in depth. So last week when we were talking about labor unrest and the changes in the workforce, it kind of made me think about, like, the tech industry in general. Over the past week, we've been seeing more headlines about this Activision stuff, as Phil mentioned, with the big three basically telling the CEO to step down, bro. So I felt it was a good time to kind of have this conversation and tie it and try to get like an It's Canon discussion about this that just doesn't read headlines off, because any effing podcast can do that. That's not what we do here for the most part. So
yeah. And if you're an employee who is having a shitty time at work, maybe look into having a union. Maybe watch Newsies. Really, Newsies, the terrible Disney movie starring Christian Bale, separately, straight up teaches you everything you need to know about a union. Straight up. Here's how you organize. Here's how you recruit people. Here's how you make alliances. Remember, you're just a union if you all agree you're a union. That's how it works. It's like corporations and money. We just all agree to it, and it magically happens.
That's 2 weeks in a row we've mentioned Newsies.
This is literally going to say, we've been back for 2 weeks. That's 2 weeks where we talk about
Everyone needs to watch Newsies.
Yeah.
We're a union because we says we is.
Anyways.
I don't disagree with anything you said, but there's not much I could say.
You're like, why is Tyler obsessed with Newsies all of a sudden?
I love it. I absolutely love it. So Phil,
let's get to the next news topic.
Yeah, Phil, look at what you did, Phil. You start talking about stuff and look at what we end up talking about.
Yeah, I thought we were supposed to dial down the intensity.
Come on, Phil, let's start a union.
The It's Canon Podcast Union is coming at ya.
Tyler, what's new? What's going on? What's going on in the life of Tyler?
I got a Kickstarter at 169 percent earlier today. So I'm sitting pretty happy with that. We're hitting stretch goals.
Nice.
It feels really good. We got a really solid number of people who are sitting on the remind me list,
Cool.
which is a phenomenon on Kickstarter.
I said cool.
Yeah, it's phenomenon on Kickstarter for people who are like, I'm going to watch this and maybe I'm going to join. And usually a decent number of them will jump in at the end. So I think we're more than double going to hit what I was after. And then it's a lot of writing and a lot of indie games. Honestly, I'm on an indie game kick right now.
Like
That's
what?
good.
Like weird stuff like Patron, which is just like it's a town building game where it's the pitch is, you're very much like in the 1600s or something like that, like starting a colony like from 12 people. And when I say starting a colony, like it's in some hypothetical world where there is actual terra nullius, like there's no people there you're kicking out. It's just like it's a city builder game where it's like you got like a little island that you're trying to manage, and the royal family sends you demands, or it's like, hey, you're a prison colony now, whether you like it or not, and you're like, guess I'm dealing with this.
Yeah.
I got sold on Techno Babylon, honestly, because I started talking to one of the developers on Twitter because a Nazi was bitching about his game publicly, and I was like, yeah, a Nazi bitching about your game and your game's on sale for $4. I'll buy it. He doesn't like that there's a gay robot. I'll play a game with a gay robot.
Hell yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. This man's a goddamn coward. And then the last bit of news is a book I wrote and kickstarted in 2018 and then went into the nether realms of just like, I wasn't the project manager on this. I was just the writer, and I'm not trying to throw anyone under the bus, but like it hit every goddamn challenge a project can hit.
Yeah.
Like one of the artist freelancers took their advance and disappeared. So like that's a chunk of the budget that's just gone now because it's gone.
Now we got less.
Yeah.
More.
And it's like, oh shit, I'm gonna deal with this. But it also causes delays.
And people
we had two members of the team get like exceedingly sick, and it's a small company, a lot of freelancers. We're in a state where if someone gets sick or someone has a situation, like the project just doesn't move forward.
Yeah.
But the point is, we got the it's done, it's edited, it's done in layout. We sent it to the company that we are licensing a small bit for the game because it's for Call of Cthulhu. They sent back the licensing changes needed today. And they were like, I don't even have to do anything. They're so simple. It just goes to the layout guy. So it was literally like, this logo needs to be like 5 pixels by 5 pixels bigger. And this verbiage needs to be very slightly different. And you're good to go. So finally, this book's been more than 3 years in the making.
That's amazing.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It was supposed to be out in 2018. I'm such a better writer now than when I made this, and if they let me, I would rewrite it now. But like, I shouldn't, because then it's just gonna delay it more.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
another year.
Yeah, I'm like,
hilarious.
I don't think I've done any. I haven't been allowed to do major changes on this since 2019. So like, I'm really excited to find out what I wrote.
Yeah. That's actually hilarious. I love looking at stuff like that because, like, even I've dabbled in writing, and I take a look back now at like when I really started and where I'm at now, and it's just like, holy shit! And we're talking like 6 months.
Yeah. A friend of mine who's an artist who I collaborate with a decent amount made a really great point, and they said that if you are looking back at your work and you're like, yes, I was the greatest. You're not like, oh shit, that's a lot better than I had any right to be back then. Or you're not like, boof, I've gotten so much better. You're doing something wrong. Like, if you look back at your old work and you're like, I truly a genius. Like that's probably the only way you're in trouble as a creative, because it's just like you have no capacity to understand how you are or are not improving.
You have no critical thinking.
There's three places where I really take a look at myself and my own work like that, and that's with my writing that I do at slamwrestling.net. So obviously, and then Tyler, you know this, like I've been very, I feel like when I moved here to Canada, I was put in ESL classes, even though I can only speak perfect English. I was always told, that I couldn't do it. So like I've always been very iffy when it comes to my writing. Like you've read my writing. You have zero, like you've had very minor notes and stuff anytime I've sent you something. But it's always been something in the back of my mind, right? Like that I'm not a good writer. So,
Well, it's super easy to get like self-conscious with that kind of thing too, right? Like
exactly.
So I think I've only really seen technical stuff from you, but yeah.
So now that I'm doing more actual writing, I take a look at back when I started. I'm like, interesting. I've obviously improved. The second is photography. I take a look at like even editing. We're talking like the actual editing of the pictures, not even the actual taking of the pictures. Like, so let's take a look at the full package at this point, and I'm like, wow. It's crazy just how much better, how much more I've improved in just like 2 or 3 years. And then the last one, where I know I do this a lot, not just because I have so many shows. And even last year, during our Christmas break, when we released episodes from our first run, that's in podcasting. I see how much I've improved as a podcaster, especially a host. And it's just like, and I continue trying to improve. Especially now that I'm kind of getting more and more on the radio side with Sunday night's main event. It's something that I'm really trying to improve on and get better at and do more broadcasting as opposed to narrow casting and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Well, it's such different skills, right? I had my first ever like live on air actual play of an RPG last week. And like had a producer who was doing the stuff of like that we don't do, but it's like, all right, you got 20 seconds till Mike's live, and I'm like, I have what? Oh no!
Yeah.
All right, we're going to an ad break. We're doing what now? So
it's
not easy.
Yeah.
It's funny though. There's one thing that happened to me when I was married. My now ex-wife pointed out, because I had just gotten a digital camera. Right? Like I was like, oh, okay, I want to go out and be a photographer. I want to take better photos. Right? And I was trying to read books about how to do it and stuff like that. And anyhow, I started focusing in on different things like textures. And I started photographing textures and like these little leaves and things like that and patterns that I'd see and trying to frame them in the shot and everything.
Yeah.
My now ex-wife looked at it and said, what the hell is this? Why are you wasting your time? And I found it was so discouraging that I didn't do it anymore. And then I just uncover that texture photography is like a thing.
It's
like,
a huge
okay,
thing.
I'm not weird.
A huge thing.
This is, I didn't know at the time. It was,
literally, this week's episode of Bob's Burgers is about that.
Oh my goodness.
Tina's trying to take these really close-up photos of leaves and stuff.
Yeah, well, it was actually like checking out Peter McKinnon's channel that it dawned on me that, holy crap, like this is an actual avenue of photography. Like some of the stuff that I did back then, hey, just like you say, wasn't brilliant, but the intent was there. I remember the thought.
Well, everyone's got to start somewhere. Like that's the thing that pisses me off. It's like, why are you wasting your time? And it's like, you never know.
Exactly.
Either this keeps this person sane, or they're the next like goddamn Spielberg.
Like, I know it's just so funny when I look back on it. Now,
that's actually hilarious. All things considered, especially considering that I bet you the camera that she used was that camera that you were taking those pictures with.
Yep.
I'm angry on your behalf now.
I love this story so much more for so many different reasons. But I forgot where we were gonna go with that. Yeah, no, just I had like the next topic in my mind, but I can like feel
Boris is like, I'm getting so much better as a podcaster and a host than I used to be. Anyways, what was I talking about?
You pieces of shit.
You set me up so good for that one.
I know I did. Oh, it's ridiculous. See, the other issue is I'm still playing with my mic. I'm trying to find like the perfect location for my mic, just because the gain is so high on this mic. Like, it's not even in frame of my camera. It's like way out there, and I'm just trying to like find the right levels, because I don't want to sound like I'm beating the mic. And I don't like hearing my clicks, and I know you can hear my clicks.
We can hear your clicks, yeah.
Fucking see, there it goes again.
Your mom tried to get you a nice mic.
And sister.
They're just doing this out of love, man.
No, I love it. It just.
I know. I saw you cast it down on Twitter today. You're throwing shade at it.
No,
like, I don't know.
No. I said
it's too nice.
It was more of I'm casting shade at my personal life, because I said, just like many things in my life, it's too good for me.
Too good for you. Yes,
that's what I used. Not that this mic isn't good. It's this.
No, you said the mic was great. You said that you weren't good enough for it.
I wasn't good enough for the mic, is what I said.
That's what I'm
exact.
saying.
Yeah. So moving on. I think we
went into the weeds.
Just like the clunk. That's got to be one of our worst transitions in years.
Yeah, 100%.
I just think we need to own that was a rough one.
There was no way to recover on that one. Like zero.
No,
zero recover.
You just gotta own it and be like, yeah, that happened. Let's move on.
Yeah, exactly. So we are going to move on, and it is time to talk about the main event of the show. And the main event of the show is going to be none other than Hawkeye Episode 1, Episode 2. As I said, if you haven't watched the episode just yet, you should probably pause. As Phil mentioned earlier, go to Disney Plus right now, find it, Hawkeye, watch both episodes, come back to said podcast, and unpause.
Unpause now, we're back.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. But general impressions, guys. Tyler, what did you think of the episode?
This is another one I gotta watch with my partner Ash, and we were both saying though, like, we expected like more Disney Plus. We're very seldom upset by watching anything Marvel, right? Like, we're not even a bad Marvel movie. Most of them are still decent. Like, most of them are like, oh, this is better than most action movies.
Yeah.
And we were like, this is actually better than it has any right to be.
Yes.
Ash has known Haley Steinfeld.
Steinfeld.
Steinfeld. I always get it wrong.
E-I-N. It's Seinfeld with a T.
I'm going to do my best. But Ash was saying, like, oh, she's a lot better of an actor than she used to be.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And the two of them are really good together. Like, they have such good chemistry.
Yeah.
It's real solid.
Yeah. Bill, what did you think?
I didn't like it.
Yeah, but you're angry at the world. You're your old man yelling at clouds nowadays.
No. It wasn't as bad as I thought it was.
You and Ridley Scott are like BFFs right now.
I was going to say, Phil and Ridley Scott have a standing drinking night where they just scowl into their scotch.
And then Alan Moore shows up and says,
the whole industry is messed up. That's what we do.
No, Alan Moore, I think, is too, I don't know. If you've read recent interviews with Alan Moore, like, that man, I think, doesn't give fucks anymore. He's like, no, of course it's fucked up. Life is meaningless. Anyways, out into the moor.
Yeah, exactly.
No, it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. It's a little over Christmas. I enjoyed the second episode. I thought the little nod to the Thanos thing of the urinal was a little bit weird. People are reading into that a bit too much, that Thanos was right and all this crap.
Oh my God.
Like, it really, I've just seen some, I guess maybe I'm indifferent towards the show. I don't see any glaring issues with it other than it's taking place at Christmas. So, okay, I'm over it. The biggest thing that I have to complain about it is seeing the coverage that I've seen of it is a dog pile. And it's just keeping me away from it. And sometimes that adds my enjoyment.
Stop reading that stuff. Stop watching that stuff.
Yeah, well, I did.
Be your
I did.
own
Like, but
person,
I read
Phil.
enough of it.
Be your own person.
Oh,
Or don't, whatever you want.
You do you.
If you can't be your own person, that's fine. Just don't
No.
be Elon Musk.
I just saw something that caught my eye, but I was just led to this whole little thing where I'm looking at the headlines and I'm like, this is an interesting subculture. Like, it happens with a lot of the stuff that we talk about, where I just look at stuff, not to form my opinion, but just to be like, oh, what's the coverage like? I'm just curious. Or what's my timeline like? My timeline's generally pretty happy about MCU stuff. It's not
Sure.
a cesspool of it. And I don't see people going crazy about it, but I don't see and that's kind of, I'm ambivalent towards it. It's just like you say, Disney makes a great product. There's nothing wrong with it. It's going to be entertaining. I know it.
Have you
Speaking of
reached?
processing-
Okay, have you reached? Because we need to figure this out, Phil. We gotta get you happy. No more with this angry Phil we've been seeing on or hearing on the podcast the past few weeks. Phil, is it that it is what it is? It's just another show that may or may not mean anything in the greater MCU. Like, what is it?
I don't really care about Hawkeye.
Okay. Well,
I don't like the actor. I don't like the character.
I mean,
just
I think-
find, it's boring.
I mean, honestly, I think both of those are like fair. I mean, the Hawkeye, the character, has been prior to this like painfully barely developed, and that's
Yeah.
fine. I mean, I think that they're doing the right thing if they're kind of leaning into it of like this weird thing if he's like the other guy from the Avengers. It's like, yeah, but who's left? Like, he's the only Avenger
Yeah.
left.
Yeah, and you know what? Like, the Ronin stuff is the saving grace for me. Maybe that, because I did find in Endgame, the Ronin character was the most interesting. Like, seeing Jeremy Renner take Hawkeye to that spot, and I know they did it in the comics and whatnot.
Mhm.
I was very curious about it. I thought that the whole auction with the sword and everything was kind of cool in the outfit. It's just, it's just hot. It's the same way I felt about Black Widow. Blah. Like, blah. That's Scarlett Johansson, and I have a lean heavily towards Scarlett Johansson, like liking her. And I'm like, it's just Black Widow. She's already dead, and this is a story that, I enjoyed Shang-Chi, or whatever, the Legend
Yep.
of the Ten Rings.
Shang-Chi.
Shang-Chi. I enjoyed that very much. So that was fantastic for me.
all right, so before you continue yelling at clouds, obviously a lot of people agree with you, Phil, that it is Hawkeye. It is just another character. I know that Hawkeye tends to be kind of like the lowbrow character, and I kind of like that they kind of make fun of that, and they use that in this show. But, after week one, it is already 40% behind Loki in terms of audience.
Yeah, that's also Jeremy Renner versus Tom Hiddleston. Like,
Yeah,
Yes.
there's that. There's also the fact that you put it up against the Beatles documentary, which has been talked about nonstop for years.
also, it wasn't marketed as heavily. Also,
Also on Thanksgiving weekend, American Thanksgiving weekend.
we have Spider-Man coming up, which is sucking up so much of the oxygen in the
Yeah.
room.
Oh, it's ridiculous.
Also,
So
we have
to your point on Spider-Man, Tyler, I'm going to stop you right there. I got Spider-Man tickets earlier today. Actually, not I didn't. Andrew did. Phil, Andrew, the guy who helped
Yep.
you get your PS5.
Good
He's
guy.
the biggest,
Helped me with PS5.
biggest Spider-Man fan. Has been since day one.
Yeah.
He plays it
But-
a lot when I see him on PS5.
Yeah. But the other thing there is he was able to get us tickets Thursday, 7:30 p.m. He logged on like an hour later. Every show was sold out for Thursday, Friday, and Saturday.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, part of that is early metrics, which admittedly were open pre-sales, but like I didn't have the time or the brain power to go into these metrics, but it's based upon like engagement with the media so far, and like the number of people who have said that they're gonna pre-order is like this has a chance to beat Endgame for opening weekend.
Woo. Good for
Yeah.
them.
Yeah, it's
Which
gonna
is
be crazy.
bananas.
It is bananas. All right, so that's Spider-Man. We're going to be talking a lot more Spider-Man over the next 3 weeks. Wait, Tyler, go ahead.
I just realized something.
Something
Something came out of the old man brain here.
What?
Part of the reason why I was not in a good mood watching Hawkeye is because I watched Venom 2, that Carnage crap. Oh my God. That was a terrible freaking movie.
Yes.
I told my friends, I'm like, I did not like that movie. And my friend is like, hey, my teenage son loved it. And I'm going, nope.
That is a movie made for teenagers, though. I mean, Venom.
I totally get it why a teenager would love that movie, but that is not a good movie. This is not a good movie. And then my friend came back to me and goes, Phil was right. That was not a good movie. Like, I really put myself in a bad MCU spot when you start a Friday night with Venom, There Will Be Carnage. The only carnage I saw was the toilet bowl. Oh,
Oof.
Disgusting.
Oh.
That was such a terrible movie. Woody Harrelson did a bad job. I've never seen him do a bad job. Like, he completely mailed in a Bruce Willis. Like, I'm just like, whoa. You took a crap on screen, and I watched it. It's garbage. Pure garbage. So I was angry, and that's another reason why I had to stop Hawkeye and then pick it up yesterday.
Right.
I was like,
So much anger in you, Phil. So much freaking anger.
But I'm not angry. That Carnage has a lot of anger issues.
All right, so going back to Hawkeye. Jesus Christ.
Boo, Wendy Chesterberger.
Were you going to say something earlier, Tyler?
I mean, I was just going on about how, like, yeah, it is doing less well than Loki. No shit! Like, that's...
I'm just saying. I'm reading headlines.
Like, no.
Selling news. We can talk about it.
It's fine. It's just like, look, they had Owen Wilson. They had, like you had Owen Wilson and Tom Hiddleston. Or Jim Rare and Haley Steinfeld. Like, that alone changes the opening numbers.
They had Mackie, like, Winter Soldier. Like, come on, man.
Sebastian Stan, Anthony Mackie, and
then you have the Olsen with
The
Olsen.
The Olsen.
The Olsen.
That's how old I am, everybody.
Plus WandaVision and Loki especially had, like, those had marketing campaigns.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and they also hit demographics really well.
They hit demographics really well. They had marketing campaigns, and they are the ones that are the easiest sale for why they're interesting and relevant.
Yeah, like look, if you're a big Hawkeye fan, I'm really happy for you that you get this series to celebrate and, you know, view the post MCU Infinity Saga through a lens of Hawkeye. I'm genuinely happy. I hope you get your purple T-shirt with your target on it. Like, I mean, seriously, I've no problem with the character. He just doesn't really excite me. That's all.
I mean,
it's good for fans.
Well, I mean, that's part of the bit. What they're doing is there aren't really Hawkeye fans. And again, they're playing with that, and I really like them. They're playing with that, and it's.
Well, the bonus point of this show is they're actually probably going to make me care more about Hawkeye at the end of it.
Yeah, well, they're basically doing My Life as a Weapon. Like, I think there's a couple of bits from this which are just literally like, oh yeah, that's the scene from that's 3 pages in My Life as a Weapon.
Yeah, I downloaded that. I haven't read it. I just was like, I'm going to read a Hawkeye comic. No.
It's probably, well, I would argue it's the best Hawkeye comic ever.
I have heard.
And one of the best comics ever.
Maybe I will read it.
I'm not saying it's the best comic. I'm the first to say that, like, there's a lot of shit out there, which makes it, like, it's not hard to be the top 10% of comics.
Oh, well, I will also say this. Boris will like this. I was a bit of a Green Arrow fan. I had a Green Arrow action figure growing up. He had little tights on. He squeezed his legs and he raised a bow. I think Boris is gone now. He's just given up.
You guys keep talking. I'm good. No? Jesus Christ, guys.
No, but that's great. What did you think of it, Boris?
I love how you inspired some of the longest conversations we've had on the show in just one episode, Phil.
I know, but I have to roundtable it back to you. Yes.
Yeah, what did I think? I loved it. I honestly loved this a lot. It, as Tyler just said earlier, I think it had no business being as good as it was. And I am so thankful that they went the TV route as opposed to a movie route, because this would have been so rushed and so bad if it was a movie. It would have been like, who are these people? Why should we care about these people? At the end of the day, right now, like even the opening scene with Kate Bishop witnessing the Battle of New York, you know, that leads you to care about her a little more. Tyler, go ahead.
I also love. I love. Wait, from the early days of this comic, we know how much I love like examining what it's like to live in a world of superheroes, and like, and I'm not. I didn't like The Boys because I don't think that's how a world of superheroes would be. Mostly because, like, I don't think you'd end up with an effective counter movement. But yeah, I mean, I think that like being someone who has to be like, I guess I got to learn how to kick ass and take names myself.
Yep.
I think it's also worth noting that like it had less than a 10% fall between episodes 1 and episodes 2.
Yes, exactly. I was going to get there.
Yeah.
Which,
right? Like,
at the end of the day, those are the stats to me that mean the most. You know, if you're going to be measuring, you have to measure how many people, obviously, overall mean a lot. But then you want to see how much it's falling week over week, because there are shows who tend to fall a shit ton between episodes. And then those are sometimes, and then people sometimes wonder, why is this show being canceled? Well, it's because they're losing audience at an insane rate.
Yeah.
And again, that trend, that line of best fit, this trend line, when it might actually the trend is like steadily off, like we see regularly with weird science fiction shows. But yeah, I mean, Loki went from 2.5 mil at the opening to 1.9 at the end, which is a really good retention.
That's not bad, especially for a Disney show that's kind of, I'm gonna say, for lack of a better term, aimed more towards your key demographic of 18 to probably the 18 to 35 demographic.
Yeah.
So, all right.
That's great that you guys are loving it.
Yeah. So
I look forward to liking it more.
And I think, again, I'm going to go back to what's really going to help it at the end of the day is the fact that it is a TV show. We've talked about it, especially when we talked about Falcon and Winter Soldier, that this long-form TV show is just overall can be better for certain characters, especially a character like a Hawkeye, an introduction like a Kate Bishop. So, you know, I'm kind of digging. But in terms of the meat and potatoes, it was pretty simple. You know, in episode 1, we are introduced to a young Kate Bishop. She sees Clint Barton doing his thing against the Chitauri in the Battle of New York. She decides, hey, I need to be a hero just like him, because, as Tyler just talked about, you know, it's living in the world where shit can go wrong at any moment, where shit can literally fall from the sky and kill your dad. So then, you know, flashback to current day. They're at a gala. At this gala, there's things are being auctioned after the Avengers compound was let go. So among the things, you know, is the Ronin suit and the Ronin sword. The tracksuit mafia, a Russian street gang, want a watch. Whose watch? What watch? We don't know. There might be more to this. Might not be. We'll see. And then that's when Kate Bishop essentially puts the Ronin suit on, defeats the tracksuit mafia, escapes her apartment, rescuing a stray dog, tracks down Armand to investigate what the hell is going on, and then she realizes that this Armand character has been murdered. Then the tracksuit mafia catch up to her, and Clint Barton makes the save. So it's a lot of introduction, a lot of like just setting the pace for at least what the story is going to be. But is there anything you guys want to talk about, Phil?
That it was interesting that Armand is the father of her new boyfriend or fiance. So obviously her mom is going to be getting close to this uncle, whatever, is going to be getting close to this criminal underworld, which obviously affects her in a lot of ways. And now she's got this relationship with Clint, right? Like with Hawkeye. So, it's just pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Not really challenging.
Yeah, it was pretty straightforward.
Simple story. And I think you're right. It's better that it's a TV show.
Yep.
I wouldn't want to watch this in a movie theater. But there's opportunities to become more charming.
Yep. Tyler, anything you want to bring up? Anything you want to talk about in particular with this episode number 1?
I mean, it was good. I enjoyed it. My partner and I have both worked at high-end galas. I've been on both sides of the equation, high-end galas like that. I have both attended and worked at them. And Ash has worked at quite a few of them.
So you've been a fat cat in the past. You've been a fat cat.
Yeah. Well, and I have a lot of friends who are fat cats.
Yeah.
I pull well in the fat cat community. No one who works that cares so much. That guy being like, I was the only person down here. No, anyone would be like, oh, thank God, there's more people working down here.
That was honestly, that was one of my first thoughts with this was, I've done catering. I fucking know what's up. No one gives a shit.
Yeah, like no.
Well, it was funny because they sold that nobody gives a shit by the fact that she was able to just walk him back there, just wearing a semblance of the uniform, which was very dark. And
I mean, that is very real.
Exactly, and that's real. Like we've all bought it. Like I'm like, yeah, that would happen for sure.
Yeah, been there.
And then they betray it. Same scene, pretty much.
But yeah,
well, it's just that one little that guy going upstairs and being like, "How dare there be another person in the basement?" That supervisor, like, I have so many other fucking problems.
Yeah. Ask Gary. Exactly. I did. He's right here. That's Gary.
Gary wouldn't be coming down to deal with this.
Exactly.
He has other shit to deal with.
Yeah. Have you not done events planning or events work? There is a minimum of 12 disasters day of. By law.
Yeah, pretty much, honestly. So that was funny. What we're referring to right now is there was a scene during the auction that we were talking about where Kate essentially infiltrates the auction by grabbing a tray, an appetizer tray, making it seem like she's working the room. Then she gets caught by another worker saying, "Hey, I'm the only person supposed to be here." And as we were just saying in catering, this would not be an effing issue whatsoever.
Yeah, but then we get no tension, so.
Yeah.
Oh, sure, but you can do it other ways.
Yeah. It was kind of cheap. It was cheap and it was an easy cop-out, right? So whatever.
Yeah.
It is what it was. Anything else, Tyler?
I mean, it was really good. I really like this show.
Yeah.
It's hard to talk about things you like because you're like, yeah, it's funny.
Yep.
It's not like I don't like it. I just don't care about it. It was TV.
Bill, calm down. Why do you have to hate everything so much? Calm down.
Okay. I'm not hating anything. I'm just like, I was like, what?
No, yeah. Just for it, I would argue, at least for me, it is the most watchable of all the Disney Plus shows so far.
Oh, probably. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, it's the most just like, I can sit down and have fun.
Yes.
Because Loki, it was like, okay.
You have to pay attention.
My partner and I talked about this. Like, we couldn't watch Loki first thing in the morning half the time because it's like, we're not yet.
Yeah. Oh, no. It's just like Mandalorian for me, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I get 2 hours to enjoy it, and then I have to analyze it and rip it apart and do all that.
Yep.
Hawkeye definitely doesn't feel that way,
No.
so it's nice to have that. And guess what? I watched it, and here's my decision.
Look,
it's
and Falcon and Winter Soldier was the same way, but
Yes.
I find that I can relate to this setting and these characters more than Falcon and Winter Soldier for some reason.
Falcon and Winter Soldier got heavy, man. They got heavy.
Yeah. Anyway, so
That was emotional.
yeah, it was at times really emotional, especially the first and last couple episodes. Anyway, moving on.
Yeah.
Episode number 2. Kate Bishop takes Spartan back to her apartment. They're attacked by the Tracksuit Mafia. They're forced to evacuate. They
Got
left
the best boy.
Sorry?
They got the best boy. You're forgetting best part.
Yes.
Yeah.
They evacuate. They left the Ronin suit behind. They relocate to the apartment of Kate's vacationing aunt. Barton sends his children back home, saying he'll be back by Christmas, which is less than a week away.
5 days.
5 days, to be exact. Takes Kate back to where she is supposed to be working, or where her mom works as a security specialist. I really like this because essentially he wants to recover the Ronin suit, the Ronin sword, and call it a day. That was it. And here's really where we see some fun back and forth between the two, and where we're really seeing kind of like that saying that they say, never meet your heroes. And I kind of feel like Kate kind of feels like, she's a little let down by how Clint actually is in real life.
Well, I think she started like that, and then she kind of understood of like, she likes Hawkeye, and she gets that not everyone else does, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I think she's kind of seen like, this guy's been through some shit, and like, we can, she seems she's a character who is aware of the circumstance at like a higher conceptual level, because she seems to also get like, oh, this isn't all about me. This isn't just like, he's like, oh, fuck this person.
Yeah.
And very quickly, she's getting him to open up, right? And very quickly, she's getting him to change his tune.
Yeah.
Which I like that compared to, compare and contrast with Happy and Spider-Man and Iron Man in the first Spider-Man movie. Of like, they treated him like shit. Like,
yeah. That was part of the shtick, though, because they're the older adults in the room and they're trying to make Tom Holland the kid, right?
No,
like,
totally. But I'm saying that it's good that you get the feeling that Jeremy Renner has learned from other people's mistakes.
Yeah.
Right? And he's very quickly being like, oh, right.
But he's like one of the guys, though, out of all this that, to be honest, I during Endgame and whatnot, I had a pretty big soft spot for Hawkeye in the sense that he was the most accessible Avenger. We were in his house. We were with his family. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like there was some real touching moments, which, sold the Ronin thing even better for me. Right. Yeah, I mean, that he just got so discouraged with the snap that he went off the edge. Yeah. He started killing people and just saying, I'm going to be the judge, jury, and executioner in all this.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Right. And now he's obligated to save her from his past mistakes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's what he's trying to, and keep his family happy. That's the balancing act that he's going to be trying to pull off in these episodes. Right.
Yeah.
It's a good dynamic. I'm not going to lie. It just was like, man.
All right. So
I have better memories when we talk about it like this.
Yes. Go ahead, Tyler.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to say that, for as much as we criticize Joss Whedon, and I'm happy to keep criticizing Joss Whedon.
As he deserves to be. He
claims... No, 100%. But a lot of people have reported that he fought really hard for that scene in Age of Ultron. And...
yeah.
I think that's important, and I think that you're right, Phil, of that. It's like, Hawkeye has long been... Yeah, this is the one that's just a guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And he's always supposed to be like, the one you can most relate to.
Yep. So much so that he has hearing damage because of all his adventures.
Oh, and that was such a good... how did it happen? I don't know. Hard to say.
Yeah.
That's so good. Instead of being like, oh, it was this one thing. It's just like,
Yeah. So Clint gets the Ronin suit back from a firefighter at a LARP event. Probably the weirdest scene out of the first 2 episodes. A scene I didn't really care too much about. Then Kate is not having a easy time convincing her mom that her mom's fiance is behind Armand's death. They get into this weird back and forth duel, literally. She then tries to contact Clint, not knowing that he is now captured by the Tracksuit Mafia. She then goes on a quick investigation, gets captured herself. Their boss, Maya Lopez, is essentially called in and told of everyone's captivity, and that's where episode 2 ends.
Yeah.
Dun, dun, dun.
I got 2 thoughts.
Yes.
We have now at least 3 characters that are 1 degree of hearing impaired, it seems like. Right? Because we have Clint, we have the head of the Tracksuit Mafia.
Yep.
And it implies possibly Clint's youngest kid.
Yes. It does imply Clint's youngest a lot.
Which is awesome. I just want to give that credit of like, that's awesome.
Yep. Nothing wrong with that.
And they're all doing badass stuff anyways. I'd also want to touch on the LARP scene.
Okay, go ahead.
Because I'm not here to defend the LARP scene we got. I'm here to defend the LARP scene I think we could have gotten.
Yes, I agree there with you. I just think that what ended up happening, and I understand, you want to have some fun. It's how the MCU is, right? It was your typical comedy in the middle of a bunch of serious stuff scene, and I'm fine with that. But I just think that considering what it was, they could have done a much better job with it.
100%. Like, there's a lot of, that's a flabby couple of scenes that don't need to be, right?
Yeah.
Like, they have the whole thing of, like, you can only get hit twice, and that's not relevant. That's just not relevant to what happens.
There was no reason to add that line. There was no reason to even state that, right?
Yeah. That
and
being
you know
said,
what's interesting? That the MCU does a great job of not going into too much detail about everything, so that if you really give a crap, you can go out and do your own research. But then, for a lot of Marvel projects and MCU projects, it's particularly, they always over give you too much info on certain things, and this scene was one of them. I kind of like it when they just kind of like assume that the audience, if they really want to know, they're gonna read up into it. They do a great job of doing that with characters, especially in Disney Plus series.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I mean, I think that it would have been. I think it was a really good overall message, though, of Clint seeing how important sometimes the little dumb shit is.
Yeah.
To the little guy. That's awesome.
Yeah, totally get that. I understand that for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely made me think about that episode differently. So thank you.
No, there you go. That's what we're here for. You know what else you're here for, Phil? Telling our listeners how they can get a hold of us.
And complain about angry old Phil. I'm telling you, I'm yelling at clouds. Well, you can track us down on our website at www.itscanonpodcast.com. You can look us up on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at It's Canon Podcast. You can email us at show@itscanonpodcast.com. I swear we read them. We really do. You can subscribe via Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, anywhere where you find podcasts, you're going to find the It's Canon Podcast. And if you like what you hear so far, be sure to, subscribe to the show would be great. And leaving a rate and review, if you can, on the platform that you're listening on. And as well, let a friend know. You can listen to people talk about stuff on a podcast. We do that on the It's Canon Podcast.
Yep. We are planning a bunch of awesome, fun stuff on the show. Like I say, we are going to go in depth with some topics. We are bringing in some guests. We are going to be having some fun with our Christmas episode, where once again, each one of us will be gifting the other two something to watch. And on that episode, we are going to chat discuss, get drunk, and have fun. And you know, that's what we're here for. So again, thank you everyone for listening to the It's Canon podcast, the podcast where we talk about everything geek, everything pop culture, everything nerd. And guys, you know what the best part of it all is?
There's a little rabbit outside. The dog from Hawkeye came by and told me it's all in canon.
That's right.
Oh, good dog, one eye.
It's all in canon. He's Phil. He's Tyler. I'm Boris. It's the It's Canon podcast. Thank you and good night.
Crazy.